All right, so let's go back to our flagpole problem. I was looking for a similar triangle with a 64-degree angle and a right angle to help me solve for my x or my height value. Well, now that I have this chart, I don't need that similar triangle because I can get the unit ratio of the comparisons. And I have 3 of them to think about. I have my sine and my cosine and my tangent. So what I need to do is look at my triangle and say, okay, what do I have? What do I need? I have this angle measurement, theta. I have my adjacent side, and I need my opposite side, which sounds a lot to me like I'm going to need my tangent, because my tangent is the story, the unit ratio between my opposite and my adjacent. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go to my chart and I'm going to find a 64-degree angle, and I'm going to ask it, hey, what is the tangent value? Here it is. So my tangent column is going to tell me, hey, you have, for a 64-degree angle, the relationship between your opposite and your adjacent. Those values can be divided into this unit ratio. You're like, awesome. Now that I have that, I can set up my ratio because my tangent is equal to my opposite compared to my adjacent. So if my ratio is 0.20503, I can put it over 1, and I can use my cross products to solve for x. X is equal to 19 times 2.0503. Remember, with trig ratios, we use 4 decimal places. So we can grab our calculator and say, okay, what is 19 times 2.0503? And I can say that that flagpole, which mathematicians are obsessed about, is about 39 feet tall. And I can solve for that measure that I was missing. So when we're solving right triangles, we can use those trigonometric ratios, and anytime I'm looking for a missing side or a missing angle. And here's a little bit of a rule of thumb. If you are given a right triangle, and remember, these always have to be right triangles. If you have one angle and one side, now let's talk about what that looks like. That's our flagpole. That's our flagpole. When I had my flagpole, I had one angle theta that was given to me, and I had one value. I can use my triangle sum theorem to solve for my complementary angle, and then I can use my trig ratios to either find my hypotenuse or my long leg. All right, let's talk about another right triangle that you're given 2 sides. If the value that they give you is 2 side lengths, let's say you have a right triangle, and I'm given, I don't know, A and B. I can always go ahead and use my Pythagorean theorem to solve for my C, but then I can also use my trig ratios to solve for whatever angle it was that gave me that relationship. Now here's the thing. These ratios I know are overwhelming. I know when I put this chart in front of you, it makes your eyes go buggy. So the more you use it, the better you'll get at it. And you can see I've got lots of copies of the trig ratio chart because I keep drawing on them, and I tell myself that I want a fresh chart, so I keep printing out new ones. So you can find these ratios on the chart attached to these notes. I put a JPEG on Google Classroom. You can refer to it. You can copy it to your phone. You can Google it. You can print it, whatever you want. But guess what? The majority of the kids prefer to find all of these values in your graphing calculator. And you're like, what? It's like Dorothy in the red slippers. She had that power the whole time. Your graphing calculator has the ability to give you all of these. But you're going to have to remember two very important things. First of all, you have to know your mode. When you go to your graphing calculator, you absolutely have to make sure that you are in the mode for degrees. So when you turn on your graphing calculator and you press this button, it takes you, its default is to radians. So what you need to do is arrow down and arrow over and hit enter to select degree. Once you're in degrees, your calculations will be based on a 360-degree circle. Radians are a unit of measuring circle that has pi as a base. 2 pi is 360 degrees, and you'll get into having lots of fun with that when you get to pre-calculus. So for right now, we need to know your mode. If you don't put it into degrees, every single one of your answers is going to be wrong. All right, so let's try one. If I came up here, instead of getting this ratio from the chart, I can ask the calculator, hey, can you give me the tangent of a 64-degree angle? So I press this button here that says tan, and I tell the calculator it's a 64-degree angle, and it's going to give me the same value that the chart did. Truth be told, it's a little bit of a more accurate decimal value because instead of rounding to the nearest thousandth, 10,000th, I go ahead and I have all these extra values. So when I go to solve this, if this value is already in my calculator, I can just say, what is that, times 19, and there I go. So as we're looking at using these values, some kids prefer the chart because they like to see all the numbers in front of them, and they know that they're just a list of unit ratios to help you solve. Some kids prefer to use the calculator because they're right there and they don't need to go looking them up on the chart. If you need to use to finding the angle, and we'll do a couple of these examples, you're going to have to use what we call the arc sine or the arc cosine. That's the inverse function, and we find that by using this blue key. So we'll be asking, let's say we ask the calculator, what angle has a tangent value of 2.05030, and it'll tell me, oh, that's a 64-degree angle. So you use the inverse functions when you're finding the angle, and you use the straight functions when you need the ratio. Guess what? Desmos is also a valuable resource for you. If you don't have a graphing calculator and you don't want to use the chart, you can go to Desmos, and Desmos will also give you these values. You first need to make sure that you click on this wrench here, because if you don't, it's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you don't click on the wrench and click on degrees, the default again is radians, and you'll end up with a lot of inaccurate ratios. So you need to make sure that you click on the wrench and switch from radians to degrees. When you click on the keyboard and you open up the functions key, you can go ahead and see all of your trigonometric functions, sine, cosine, and tangent, and each of their inverses, arcsine, arccosine, and arctangent. Now these guys down here, these are the ones that we care about. When you get to pre-calculus, guess what? There are more to learn. So we're sticking with just these ones for now. Your arcsine, arccosine, and arctangent is another way of saying the inverses. And these ones are if you're finding the angle, who has that ratio, and these buttons are if you're just looking for the ratio. So the more you do this, the better you get. We're going to do a lot of practice. Click on your next video for that.